Hello game makers, welcome to my channel. This is GameMaker Rob, and in this episode I'll be showing you how to create your own innkeepers for RPGs. We have a fade in, fade out effect, text. You can easily set the cost in gold for different inns. We're warping the player to the bed, and we're also healing the player too. So let's get started. Okay, so for this video I'm going to try a different format. Instead of typing things out letter by letter and having you type along with me, I'm actually going to type it out first, and then I'll show you what I've done that's new and explain it. Benefits of that is it's going to be a lot faster for you guys to watch it, and because I'm sure plenty of you just pause it anyway to get the code and stuff. And also, you're still able to see how things are built up because I'm still going to do it in that way. Yeah, so I think it'll be better for the videos. I'm just going to briefly show you what I have set up as well for this tutorial. We have a room, and for my RPG, I like to have a width of 640, height of 480. And I've got a view. Just one view, where is it? Sorry. Viewport 0 enabled, and the width of the view is 320, height 240, and the port is 640 by 480. Basically, I'm just doubling the width and height of the sprites. That's how I do it. And in terms of objects, we've got the player. These variables, mostly it's for movement code. We've got gold, and we're creating our interaction object. This is basically the red square that is always in front of the player, and this is how we're going to detect which NPC we're talking to. We don't strictly need it for this tutorial because we're only going to have one innkeeper, but it's better to start with that structure in place because, you know, obviously you're going to have more than one NPC, so why not get it in place now. So this is the step event of the player. It's my movement code that I did in my movement tutorial. I'm not going to explain too much about it because I've already done a tutorial on that. I'm just going to show you the code. Briefly explain that when the player's talking to an NPC, we're going to set this variable disabled to true, and that's going to stop all this input from being taken. And facing is basically which direction the player is facing, and that's set every time you press a key. And that's how the interaction object, the red square, that's how it knows where to be. This is just the rest of the movement code, and this is the camera code. Again, I've done a quick tutorial on cameras, so if you want an explanation, please check that out. The links to those videos will be in the description. Interaction object. All we have is tracking which direction the player is facing, and then based on that, that's where the position of this object is going to be. We don't need this yet. We're going to use it actually though for the innkeeper, so we're going to keep that minimized for now. And NPC, all we're doing is, I like to use a shop counter as the sprite for the NPC, and then to draw like an NPC character above the shop counter, and that's how you get the effect that you can see in the intro. Okay, so let's get into the coding bit now. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is inside the step event of OBJ interaction is we're going to have this code. It's basically going to detect NPCs. Yeah, this is just a tutorial about innkeepers, but if you have different types of NPCs, you're going to want this to detect them regardless. And we're actually going to determine whether it's a shopkeeper or an innkeeper inside the rooms, which I'll show you in a minute. So for this code, we're just checking using a collision rectangle where we have the coordinates set up already, which is just basically the red square. And if this interaction object is colliding with the NPC object, then we are setting a variable inside obj player called target NPC. Otherwise, if the interaction object is not colliding with any NPC at all, then we're setting the target NPC to no one. And inside obj NPC in the create event, we are setting two variables to false, innkeeper and shopkeeper. I'm doing this so that anyone who has watched my shop tutorial will have a better idea of how to continue with their own games. So as soon as the instance is created, it's going to have these two variables set to false, but inside the room, we're going into the create event of our innkeeper, and we're setting innkeeper to true. So this is how we're going to know whether the NPC is a shopkeeper, innkeeper, or just like a normal NPC. The next thing we're going to do is inside the create event of obj player, we're going to set the variable target NPC to no one. And then in the step event, we've got two new regions. We have activate NPC, and all we're doing is checking whether space has been pressed or not. If space has been pressed, then pressed OK is true, otherwise it's false. And then we are saying if we've pressed OK and the interaction object is colliding with an NPC, which is what this code does here, then we're going to check to see what kind of NPC it is. For this tutorial, it's just going to be about innkeepers, but you should be able to adapt this code to shopkeepers and anything else as well that you want to. So here we're saying if target NPC is an innkeeper, then we're going to put the innkeeper code here. So before we do that, in the create event of obj player, we're going to add a new variable called show text, basically whether we're going to show text or not. And in the step event, we've added some code to this region for the innkeeper. We've added to check whether the player is disabled or not. We only want this code to run at the very start of the interaction. So we're going to grab the cost in gold that it's going to stay. This variable is set inside the create event of the innkeeper. So we're adding cost to stay. Again, this is something you can change for however many innkeepers you have. You can gradually increase the price or however you want to do it. So back to the step event of the player. Disabled, so we're disabling the player from movement, which also stops this code running again. And we're showing text to be true. And we're going to have this first line of text or a few lines of text, and we're going to include the cost of how much it's going to stay by including this variable that we just grabbed from the NPC. And finally, we've added in a new event, the draw GUI event. I've got a text box drawing it from the top left. It's a size of 320 by 128. And in the draw GUI event, I'm drawing that sprite here, setting the draw coordinates here, setting the text coordinates here. I've got a monospace font, which is the size of 14. It's also monospace, which means every letter and character takes up exactly the same amount of space, as you can see here. Even the capital letters take up the same space as the lowercase letters. grabbing the font size of that, just so we know how far the lines need to be from each other, because we're going to use draw text ext, which is extended, and this will I'll show you the effect. So if we walk up to the Innkeeper, press space, it's gonna convert the text into lines, as you can see. So it's converting one line of text into 3 just because of this function. Briefly explain, so x coordinate, y coordinate, the string that we want to draw. Separation, this is the distance between the lines, so I'm going for the size of the font plus 4 pixels just to give it that space you can see there between the letters. And then for the width, for W, this is how long you want each line to be. I'm using the full width of the sprite minus buffer times 2 just to give it a margin, and I'm setting the buffer at 16, and that's how we're getting this effect here. This new code is just inside the step event of the player. There's quite a bit. We've added a new check for backspace because we want to know if the player is trying to cancel or not. We moved not disabled to inside if target keeper. So if target npc.innkeeper is going to encompass all of this code. So straight when the player first interacts, he's not disabled. We've already covered this bit. Otherwise, if the player is disabled, then we're going to run this code. This is going to be when the player presses space for the second time. That's because we have else. If we didn't have the else statement, then it would run straight away, which is going to mess us up. So if we need to check if the player has enough gold, which is why we're using this. If he does have enough gold, so we're greater than or equal to the cost to stay, we remove the gold from the player, and we are going to show a message to say the fade object is going to be created, and we're going to change the text to this one here. If this condition isn't met, so basically if the player gold isn't enough to stay, then we're just going to change the text to this much. Let me just change our gold amount. I'm going to run the game twice. We're going to run it once to show the player has enough gold, and second time to show the player doesn't have enough gold. So yes, I'd like to stay. The text hasn't changed yet because the game's frozen because of this show message. I just wanted to make sure that something obvious would pop up so you can see. And the text has changed to sleep well and don't mind the cockroaches. So if we now change the gold amount to less than 6 and run the game again, we should have a different result. So there we go, too poor. And if we press backspace, we can end the interaction. Let's just go through that code. So, sorry, step event. So we've covered this. We can now delete this because we don't need it. Player doesn't have enough gold. Change it to this. And outside of this bit of code, so if pressed OK and target NPC is not equal to no one, outside of that code, we need to be checking for cancel. So if we're pressing cancel, then we're just setting show text to false and disable to false. You can press this whenever, and these two events are going to happen. Okay, so now we have created an OBJ fade object. There's no code in there right now. We've also added a new layer to the room called the fade layer. You don't strictly need this because we can always draw the black rectangle to the GUI layer, but I'm just including it in case you want to use the draw layer, the normal draw layer. And we've added this condition to if the player has enough gold. So we only want this code to run if we haven't already created the fade object. Otherwise, this is going to keep running every time we press space, and it's going to keep costing the player gold. All we're doing here is creating the fade object on the fade layer, and that is it so far. So there's one more change in the step event of the player. We're just doing a check to make sure there isn't an instance of obj fade, just to stop this from occurring in case we have less gold after we spent it. And we press space again. And in obj fade, the create event, we've got two variables. Fade to black is either going to be true or false, and alpha is going to be a number from 0 to 1. Alpha is going to control the transparency. Fade to black is going to control whether we're fading to black or from black. So in the step event, when the object is first created, we're going to fade to black. So we're going to increase alpha by 0.01. As soon as alpha gets to 1, it's going to be fully black. This is entirely optional. You might not want to do this, but some games the player character is transported to the bed. So that's what this code does. We're transporting to the bed. Bed X and bed Y are two new variables. So they have been set inside the room here. For my movement code, I have to update the player's target X and target Y. Otherwise, it's going to cause a weird movement glitch. Reset the target NPC to no one. And we want to fade from black, so we're going to reset the boolean to false. And we want to stop showing the text as well. So as soon as this code is run and alpha gets to 1, all this is going to happen, and then this is going to happen as well. So as soon as we get to 1 alpha, we're going to go back to 0. And as soon as we get to 0, we're going to fill the player's hit point bar to maximum, and we're going to allow the player to move again. And lastly, we're going to destroy the instance. And the last event here is the draw GUI event for the fade object. All we're doing is getting the size of the room, setting the color to black. We are drawing the transparency based on the alpha, drawing the black rectangle, and resetting the alpha to 1 to make sure that nothing else is affected by the alpha. If we didn't have this line, we'd get some weird effects. And I think the last change is in the create event of the player. We've got hit point and hit point max. So if we run the game, obviously I forgot to show you what's in the draw GUI event. I'll show you that afterwards. So we're displaying our hit points, our gold. Go to the innkeeper. Yes, I'd like to stay. We lose some gold. Our hit points are restored, and we can move around. And that's it. So the draw GUI event of the player, that's this bit. So the black border at the bottom is this. And the hit point text is this bit. And the gold text is this bit. Okay, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Please do let me know what you think of the new format. Was it better? Was it worse? Is there anything that I can do to make it better, more informative? If you haven't subscribed, please do. It helps me out a lot. I'm trying to hit the 1,000 mark so I can spam you guys with adverts. Also, if you have made any games, I'd love to check them out and review them on my channel. that's it. I hope I will catch you next time. Bye for now.